Lesson 1, Whole Numbers and Money, Variables, and Evaluations. Just evaluation. Okay. Here we go. Counting numbers and natural numbers. So if I were to say to you, count to 10. Go ahead, count to 10. Notice that you start with 1. And you could continue on without end. So counting numbers begin with 1, and they just continue on without end, because you can continue to count forever and ever and never stop. Now whole numbers are the same as counting numbers, they just include the number 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. These 3 dots right here are called ellipses. That just means that it continues on without end. I remember whole numbers include 0 because the number 0 to me looks like a hole in the ground. So I remember, oh, whole numbers include that hole in the ground, or the number 0. Now there are 4 mathematical operations that we are going to focus on today. Now they're not like heart operations or lung operations or new kidney operations. These are actually mathematical operations. There's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. When we have addition, so when we are adding 2 numbers together, each number, let's look at 3 plus 5 equals 8. The 3 and the 5 are both called add-ins. And the answer is called the sum. So these are some vocabulary words that you're going to need to be familiar with. When we have subtraction, let's do 10 minus 6 equals 4. The first number in your subtraction problem is called the minuend. The second number is called the subtrahend. And the answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference. In multiplication, let's say we are going to multiply 5 times 6 equals 30. Both the numbers that are being multiplied, the 5 and the 6 in this case, are called factors. And the answer to a multiplication problem is the product. In division, let's try 50 divided by 10 equals 5. The first number is called the dividend. The number you're dividing by is the divisor, and the answer is called the quotient. There's lots of different ways to write a division problem. So we can write it this way with the division operation symbol. We can write it with a division box. Now this is the part that a lot of kids will get very confused about. Which number goes inside the box? Which number goes outside the box? The very first number, dividend, goes inside the box. And we divide by the divisor, so the divisor goes by the box. And then the answer, the quotient, will be after you divide on the top of the division box. Now when we have a fraction, the dividend goes on top of the fraction, the numerator, the divisor goes in the denominator, and that equals the quotient. I ran out of room here, so I'll just write it down there. There's different ways to write multiplication. And we're going to use the numbers 2 and 3 to show these different ways. So we could do 2 times 3 with a big capital X in the middle. You've probably seen that before. We can use a dot. That indicates multiplying. We can use parentheses around each number. So if you have a number in parentheses next to another number in parentheses, that just means multiply. Sometimes you'll see letters like A times B, the dot. Or if you see A, B right together, that just means multiply those two numbers. Sometimes we even see 2 times 3 in a vertical type arrangement. Now we have ways to write division. You could do, say, 15 divided by 5 with the division operation symbol. You could do 15 inside the box divided by 5 outside the box. Or you could do as a fraction, 15 divided by 5. We always read the fractions top to bottom, 15 divided by 5. There's ways to write money. And it's when we're talking about change. So we're going to do 50 cents because this is the one that kids sometimes aren't sure how to write. So if you use the dollar sign, you put a decimal in with your change. If you don't want to use the dollar sign and you want to write just 50 cents, there is no decimal. So sometimes if you were to write this, that means half a cent. This does not mean 50 cents, so this is the wrong way to write it. But a lot of times you'll see kids or even adults, I've seen this in the store before, where they will write it with the decimal and the cent sign. And that just actually means 1/2 of a cent. In math, a lot of times we'll use variables. And they're just letters that represent numbers. The values are not constant. Thus, the name variables. When you see the word evaluate, that just means solve. So a lot of times on tests and in homework, you'll see the word evaluate. And that just means solve the problem, find out what the answer to the variable is. So here's an example where you might see this. Evaluate using x equals 15 and y equals 2. A, x plus y, and b, x, y. And remember, if the letters are together like this, the variables, that means multiply. So our x is 15, so we just replace x with 15. And we're going to add our y, which is 2, and we'll add 15 plus 2, which is 17. So to evaluate just means solve. So we have to find out that that equals 17. Then if x is 15 times 2, we're just going to multiply 15 times 2, and we get 30. So when we evaluated, we got 30. That's the end of the lesson 1.